Hello everyone. Today I want to share with you 3 concrete actions that you can start making today to improve your art. While I started drawing as a little girl, I've taken private art lessons growing up. I have also had a minor in fine art in university, but it's actually not until the end of 2021 that I really started to practice art routinely on a regular basis. Here, I've summarized 3 actions that I have taken that have resulted in serious improvement in my art. The backdrop of this video will be recent pencil sketches in a new sketchbook that I started using. This is a sketchbook that I got from DeSerres called Talon's Art Creations, and I have a separate video reviewing this sketchbook because I really like it. The first tip might be obvious to you if you watch my daily process videos, which is restricted time interval sketching. When you only have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 20 minutes to complete a drawing, there's a sense of urgency created, and this urgency really encourages you to draw more intuitively and freely. It'll also help you build up muscle memory and build up a method for which you can quickly capture forms. For example, for me personally, through time interval practice, I have built up a routine such that in the first few strokes, there are important things that I know I need to capture immediately. Otherwise, I'll get the whole thing wrong. So this forces me to draw the things that capture the essence of the sketch, because I know that if that's not captured, then the whole thing breaks apart. These are often the key shapes, the key lines. These things depict the proportions, the boundaries, and directions. And when it comes to pencil sketches, I know I don't have enough time to render everything and give highlight and contrast to everything. I need to think on the fly, what is my focus area? What's the essence of this drawing that I must capture correctly? How do I want people to feel when they see it? Do I create this drawing with rough or soft lines? Is it a happy or sad gaze? And when I use a pen without pencil sketch, it really forces me to think carefully where the line is. Where do I put the pen down? Through working with restricted drawing time intervals, I became better and better at adapting on the fly and more efficient in capturing the big picture with very short amount of time. I would say don't underestimate that ability to think on the fly. This is probably the most important piece of muscle you are training. And because the ability to think on the fly stimulates creativity. When I have limited time left, I'm forced to let go. I noticed I started to sketch very differently. My lines for cross-hatching started to look different. I had gaps in them because it just took shorter amounts of time when you create hatching with gaps. I started to use my fingers to smudge and blur lines instead of reaching for other tools. I tried to get the most uses out of the tool I'm holding because I don't have time to look for something else. I hold the pen or pencil differently to achieve variations of lines instead of reaching for a different shade or a different tool. These all came to me without really thinking. It's not like my mind thought about this and then my hand did this. This whole process happened before I was actually thinking. The most beautiful part about this is with practice, you become really easy to get into the zone. Setting a timer becomes a routine. You set it and you start drawing without thinking too much about it. You just go. I feel like this is a great way to get rid of art block. The second action that I recommend everyone start taking now is to experiment more. One of the benefits of doing restricted time practices is that you'll end up with lots of little sketches and drawings. To keep things interesting, I highly encourage you to experiment with different paper, different material, different tools while making these little sketches and drawings. Give yourself limited tool set to work with and see what you can come up with. Create some arbitrary rules for yourself to follow, such as don't use an eraser for the whole sketch or only use straight lines and then see what you can come up with. When you do this consistently, this beautiful side effect is that you'll no longer take your art too seriously. You no longer feel they're precious things. You're no longer making art for the purpose of having art as the desired result. They become the byproduct of your experimentation. They're the inevitable result of your daily routine. They can still be beautiful to look at and examine, but you will no longer feel they are what you've been working hard towards. When you feel your own art and your own creation are more and more obtainable and accessible, you will realize that you've gained more confidence in drawing and more confidence in the creation process. It's only when you become comfortable with the way you draw, your own habits, your own preferences, that could be the way you like to hold your pen or the colors you like to pick out to draw with. Only when you establish these things, that's when you start to develop your own art style. Your art style is part of what makes you, you. You've probably heard of the saying, practice makes perfect. But does practice really make perfect? What do we mean when we say practice? It usually means repeating what you've been doing before. But the thing is, if what you've been doing before was wrong to begin with, then the more you practice, the more consistently wrong you became. The thing you are trying to perfect or improve does not get better, but rather you become more familiar and efficient at achieving the wrong process or results. When it comes to drawing, creativity is important, but using references is also important. There's definitely beauty in drawing from imagination, but if you want to achieve consistency in improving your art, I highly recommend using references as your guide to determine whether you're on the right path or not. This is especially true when it comes to anatomy. The human anatomy, whether that's face or body, can be really difficult to master. In the old days, there's the concept of hierarchy of genres for figurative art. So the hierarchy goes from history paintings depicting things such as religious or mythological subject matter, followed by portrait painting, and then by genre art, which is often depiction of everyday life, such as parties, street scenes, market. And then there's landscape, animal portraits, and then lastly, still life. Notice that predominantly, the first three all involve drawing people, whether that's depicting human figure in history or capturing the likeness of an important person or drawing people in everyday life. Why do you think the old masters rank drawing people higher? Well, there are many reasons that are, I would say, no longer true today, such as the emphasis on narratives from religion or representations of power and nobility. These were all deemed more valuable back in the days. The one thing I still agree with the old masters is that drawing the human figure accurately requires a deep understanding of anatomy, proportions, gesture, and spatial awareness, spatial relationships. This is a fundamental skill that really provides the artist the ability to represent the human form convincingly, whether in a realistic or artistic or stylized ways. I do believe it's important to use references when you're studying the human figure because it's so incredibly easy to get it wrong. And when you don't use references, it's easy to assume that you're not wrong, and you could keep drawing with the wrong understanding of what a face or body should look like under different circumstances. When it comes to landscape or still life or other subject matter, I still think it's important to use references, but I do believe it's less important compared to drawing people, simply because of how complex the subject matter can get. The references can be photos or real life. You can find references from so many sources. Could be product catalog from your favorite clothing shop. Could be going to a coffee shop and draw from the window. One website that I like to use is called Line of Action, where you can find both facial expression and figure drawing references. And better yet, from the line of action, you can actually set up time intervals for yourself to practice as well. In summary, the 3 actions that I recommend everyone who wants to improve their art to start doing now is number 1, start doing restricted time sketching. And number 2, experiment, and experiment. And then number 3, use references. Thank you for watching. I hope to hear from you what are some of the tips or actions that you recommend I start doing. Please let me know in comments down below.